Welcome to the Zandbergen Report, where wealth strategies and investment wisdom collide, featuring your distinguished host and certified financial planner, Bart Zandbergen.
Welcome to our show of Wealth Makers and Dream Makers. We are thrilled to be back in the studio today with my new episode of the Zandbergen Report. As your host, I'm proud to bring you the movers and shakers and difference makers who are passionate about sharing what they have learned and what you need to know today. Today, I am super pleased to have a good friend of mine, Basel Nassar, serial entrepreneur, current owner of company Boss Dog. Basel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bart.
Of course. Paul, are you going to be super surprised to know how I know Basel?
I'm all ears.
Most of my guests come from where? At what time?
From the gym at 4:30 in the morning here. Is this another one?
It's another.
Oh, my goodness. This gym is like the center of
wealth makers and dreams.
Yeah.
You should see him at work. He's quite the networker.
People like working on, he's running around the gym talking to everybody here.
Yeah, they don't call me the mayor of the gym for nothing. Well, Basel, thanks for coming in today.
My pleasure.
All right.
Well, he's the boss of Boss Dog.
He is the boss of Boss Dog. And so how we met is Basel, who for 2 years went pretty unnoticed in the gym, kind of, head down, working hard, and I kind of messed that up for him because he always wore this cool logo on his shirt, and I didn't know what it was other than Boss Dog. I mean, who doesn't want to be the boss dog?
Everybody.
So when I asked him about the logo, he said, well, it comes with a company that I actually run, and one thing led to another.
And there it is on the table. We're talking about Boss Dog today.
There it is, and we're going to talk more about it. But more so, I mean, as Basel and I have got to know each other, he's more than just the owner of the current company. He's been quite successful over his business career and personal career as well. But one of the things that I want to start with is the thing that intrigued me when you and I first started talking, Basel. And once you found out what I did, you said, well, I have a story about my advisor. And you told me, hey, and I think you were in your early 20s, and you met this guy who may have been early as an advisor. And you said, hey, I don't need you now, but I'm going to see you when I'm 35, and I'm going to have $1 million to invest with you. And you told me, hey, this guy's your advisor now, and you actually came and showed up with the money. So tell a little bit about, that's pretty young to be, have had a level of success like that. So
yeah, I was
what's your story? What's your story?
Vinegar back then, so
I love that.
No telling what I said. But I think it just started early on. I had a motivation to work for myself. My dad was a chief executive for a large manufacturing and building company in the Middle East for many years. I actually grew up in Saudi Arabia for most of my elementary school. And so I got to see firsthand him at an operational level. And so it was, I think after a couple of ventures working for others and, achieving great success for them, I realized, in my early 20s that I could figure this thing out and, do it for myself. So it was probably a cocky remark sometime made in my 20s that luckily held true. So
Yeah. So what are some of your earlier your business ventures?
I've been a party to a few, mainly within CPG, a consumer product group arena. Energy bars. There was a short, unsuccessful stint in moonshine. I learned how to liquor, make whiskey, though, with the best of them. I think you guys all got a bottle for
I was going to say I'm a benefactor of that.
You got one of the
I've been
bottles.
afraid to try it, by the way. I'm not sure what to expect.
Yeah. And then I think probably the biggest project was a 20-year deal that I got into with a couple of other guys where we were fortunate enough to get right in front of the Greek yogurt phenomenon for humans. And it was in 2002 that we founded a Greek yogurt company. And, we were just a bunch of young guys in our mid-20s, and none of us had built a brand before. I'd been a party to a few brand ventures with other people's money.
Yeah.
And we just figured it out, and it was, challenging the behemoths of the world. There was two, global brands at the time that there was very little room for entry. And, we just kept at it using grassroots techniques for years before we got any traction. And then finally it started to turn. And then in 2010 we were acquired. And then, of course, you have a lot of bandwidth available to you at that point. And so a lot of learning that went on for sure in the last 20 years.
Wow. So 2 questions. Why and how Greek yogurt?
Well, I'm Greek. And actually, the story goes, Andy Hagen, whose family was the founders of Hagen Food and Drugs in Washington. They're no longer. They're absorbed by Albertsons a little while ago. And anyway, you saw a few banners pop up here in Southern California there for a bit. But he came to me 20 years ago, and he said, what do you know about Greek yogurt? And I said, what any good salesman would say, well, what do you need to know, Andy? And within 3 to 4 weeks, me and a couple of guys, we all a bunch of Greek guys, and got together and decided to put together a sample, and we showed it to them, and we ended up finding a co-packer, which is pretty consistent with what we do in our industry. You find co-mans to help pack out, and we had a run, but, we went in and out of business probably 2 or 3 times, just typical industry struggles. But that's how the Greek yogurt thing started. Originally, it was actually hummus and tzatziki for the first 2 years, and then we just couldn't make that work. And then when Greek yogurt came in, it just kind of monopolized all of our focus. So
here's a couple things I've learned today. So first of all, how do you actually properly pronounce tzatziki, which is how I say it?
Tzatziki?
Tzatziki. Yeah. Paul, make note.
Kill the T.
Tzatziki.
Tzatziki. So noted.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Second is, here's my naivete. Yeah. I figured that Greek yogurt was like French fries. Like French really didn't invent the fries. Yeah. So I figured Greek yogurt was just a name that got applied to yogurt. Not true?
I'll tell you what, it's now that I'm out of that, but I'm in a sense I'm still in Greek yogurt because Boss Dog's intro to market was Greek style frozen yogurt treats for pets. So I kind of jumped right back into it. But there's without getting too technical, there's really no standard of identity for Greek yogurt. So there's a standard that says you have to introduce certain probiotics, then you can call it yogurt. Greek yogurt's a marketing term. Now, if you go back to Europe or Greece specifically, there's a process for making what's commonly referred to as strained yogurt or Greek yogurt. And that's, in essence, what we did here in the U.S.
Okay.
A version of that Greek variety.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So young kids, young boys, men, getting into the business, did you have advanced, education, training, school, or just, learn as you go?
All of us 4-year undergrad, but all the operational savvy came from just working in factories, driving forklifts. I think for the first 4 or 5 years prior to the Greek company, I was running in operations for a soup and spice house, driving forklifts around, chopping garlic and ginger all night long. So we learned a lot of just hard work and operational disciplines. Each one of us brought something specific to the table. But that was 20 years ago. Now fast forward, and I've been a party to multiple industries now, and I've ended up handpicking 4 or 5 of my top people that have been with me since day one, and they are actually the group behind Boss Dog now. Okay. And so it's kind of a familiar house for us because we've all been working together since early 2000s. Yeah.
All right, so that's a great segue. So Boss Dog, how does Greek yogurt go? Well, so yogurt tree, but how do you get from CPG to dog food
to pet? Well, I didn't want to violate violate my non-compete. No. No such thing. I'll tell you, I knew a lot about Greek. I knew a lot about digestive health. Beyond Greek, we actually did a lot of plant-based solutions over the 20 years, almond and coconut yogurt. So we learned a lot and had a lot at our disposal. I said, why not for pets? Barriers of entry in pet are very high. And so it's a kibble and bits world, or it has been for the last 30 years, and you've only seen the premiumization of the specialty channel really in the last 3 years. Millennial boom. Yeah. And it's a great place to be if you can get within the right segment. And I figured, I didn't want to tackle the kibble people. So we found something that was consistent with what our market strategy is, which is narrow market entry. And I didn't know how narrow it was until I got into it, because I thought people were just going to open their arms and willingly take Greek-style frozen yogurt and throw it on every shelf, and then we'd be done with it. But unfortunately, the pet industry is severely lacking freezers. So 250 freezers later, we had to end up purchasing our own market share, in essence. And, we've got Greek yogurt in the market today. But the whole basis for it was we just understood Greek yogurt. I think better than most, and we figured that it should apply to pets, and so it's been really a great springboard for the brand, which focuses primarily on digestive health. So everything that we do focuses on and infused with probiotics angle.
Oh, okay, that's great. All right. Yeah. My guess is you have probably the most healthy gut in the gym right now.
Well, I don't eat the food,
but... okay, cool. So what challenges did you find on the way other than the real narrow market?
Yeah. Coming out of consumer products, typically if you had pipeline innovation, 4 or 5 items that are coming out, and you're a relatively established brand, retailers like to rally around concepts like that. First to market, whatever the rationale is. Pet operates a little bit slower. And so, think about an $82 billion industry that's run still largely today by brick and mortar, mom and pop. That's an up and down the street service. So you've got to get out there and meet a lot of individuals, whereas, historically it was headquarter call, one-stop shop, 350 stores later, you had penetration. But pet, with all of its upsides, that's its challenge. It just is a slightly slower moving industry. They haven't seen a lot of innovation over the last 30 years, so they're slow to receive it. And, there's a ton of sensitivity to e-com and what .com's doing to the brick and mortar channel. Yeah. And so there's, certain strategies you need to follow if you're going to be successful in any of those.
Is your product available in e-commerce, or are you strictly brick and mortar right now?
Well, I can tell you that we're focused on Boss Dog as a specialty channel brand currently. In the event that we do move channel, I can tell you that we're putting all of the measures in place to prevent the issues, and the issues are generally, price compression, and you start seeing some race to the bottom. So we're being very slow, and I'll tell you, we're honoring the relationship with our retailers, and we're protecting pricing. And I think, by and large, everyone's just super enthusiastic with what we're doing. But moreover, they can't believe how far we've come in 12 months. I mean, we've entered 4 different product segments within pet in less than 12 months, and over 30,000 points of distribution. It's just one of the fastest growing brand initiatives we've ever been a party to. So that tells you the street and the consumers are responding favorably.
Yeah. How to just to keep things relative? So the $82 billion you said in this industry, how does that compare to the human?
Human consumption trends are much higher on a global basis. Frequency for consumption, variety is going to be a lot higher.
Sure.
Here's the biggest difference I can give you comparing the two industries. When we walk into a grocery store, at best we'll ask for, where's the bread aisle? And once we get over there, we're not going to need a lot of convincing to sway one way or the other. Maybe there's a spelt bread on deal, and, hey, I want to try something different. We'll go that way. In pet, it's completely different. When a consumer walks into a store, they either have a puppy, a sick dog, an older dog, or they just don't understand what's wrong with their animal, and they always go to the retailer for guidance. So to get conversion or change in the pet industry is hard, because you've got to get what we call gateway penetration. And if you can't get the stores to support you, there's just no building brands within pet because of that sensitivity to change.
Right. Yeah, I had talked before about the difference of, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, just actually going out and shaking hands. Like, it's so much different, right, than
it's overlooked,
headquarters.
And I did it for the first 10 years of our last project, and then I got out of it for a while because we were, just working on this 13-week public company system, and it was a different format for me. And now that I'm back at it again, I love it. I'm on the road 3 to 4 days a week. It has, its downfall, but getting out there and networking and meeting people, and moreover, getting deals done. I love it.
So you built this company from the ground up.
Yep.
So you went from 0 to what's your staffing like?
Well, I've got 5 people that are, we're senior level individuals that came over from the last group. Yeah. So I've got a head of marketing. I've got a lady that's been in the office for years with me that runs my entire back office, marketing support team, and just a great group. I think the biggest challenge is when you decide to bite the bullet and put your own team in the street, because to get the kind of quality up and down the street service, those guys aren't cheap. So right now we're using brokerage and other means to go to market. So that I just need a little bit more brand maturity, and then we'll. But the team is sound. I mean, we've got some very interesting platforms that a lot of the industry doesn't see. One of them is what we call at your service. So it's focused on empowering the retailer on every product placement opportunity, which is something that's kind of gone away from the industry. People like to set it and forget it, whereas we're big believers of investing in taking the brand to market and then reinvesting back in the retailer to protect your space.
Yeah.
And so that's working well.
Do you see, like, for instance, I randomly was I'm in Whole Foods a lot, randomly walking down the frozen food section, which I don't normally go by, and I saw a dog food in the freezer. Is that someone that you would call on at some point?
Again, when you're talking about another channel. So I mean, if you carve up the industry, it's basically specialty channel. Yeah. Your big box, your Petcos and PetSmarts, your e-com, and then you get into conventional grocery.
I see.
That's going to probably be one of the latter channels, just because they don't have carve out specifically for specialty pet. Yeah. You can walk down the kibble aisle all day, but it's evolving. I mean, if you walk through any store now, you start seeing refrigerators for pet foods at Target. Yeah. And so it's just a matter of time before the industry pivots and does what it's currently doing on every channel level. And it's going to be guys like us, I think, that probably start the trend, because everybody's been doing Me Too innovation for the last 10 years. So to come out and actually come out with real innovation is something the industry hasn't seen before. Yeah, yeah.
So speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about we talked about the company. Let's talk about the product, and other than the fact that it's good for their gut, what you have and why it's good for them.
Well, I mean, again, Boss Dog was purely born on the desire to bring digestive health solutions to pets. Yeah. And so within the last 12 months, we've come out with Greek-style frozen yogurt treats. Raw goat milk with DHA and taurine. This complete and balanced meal that's sitting on your desk here, freeze-dried raw diet for dogs. This is something that we're really excited about, because we sized down the portions to what we have trademarked called nugs. Yeah. And it lets you use this essentially as a complete meal solution, or a training tool, treat, or mixer, or topper. Huh. So it's got multiple utility, and each one of these nugs is infused with 5 million probiotics per cup. Wow. And then Pro Puffs, which launches this week, which is the first to market ancient grain pillow puff infused with protein and probiotics.
You guys are so... Yeah. So Paul's over there licking his chops. I don't know if we can keep him away from this.
That sounds good. Like, I want to eat this stuff
here.
You
can eat the Pro Puffs.
Forget Paul. My dog. I'm gonna eat this stuff.
Yeah. The Greek froyo is human grade all
Has
day
anybody
long.
ever done probiotics for animals? Because I know it's a big deal with humans, but I've never heard anybody talk about infusing or adding probiotics for pets.
It's just starting to evolve. There's been supplements, but supplements aren't sexy. And we're, just like you like to enjoy an ice cream cone when you're relaxing, we like to enjoy watching our pet enjoy a 3.5-ounce frozen Greek yogurt, And so there's different ways to deliver probiotics. Historically, it's been just scoop and serve. Yeah. Now we're coming up with creative ways to infuse it into their regular meals, so you're not having to do assembly line supplements, and you get everything in one, is the idea.
So somebody was on a while. Actually, last year, I'm sure you go to it, the Pet Expo at the Orange County Fairgrounds. It's supposedly one of the biggest pet expos west of the Mississippi, and they take over the whole fairgrounds every year, and they've come here every year talking about, because I guess it's like the manufacturers of dog food or something, whatever that association is called, and they have talked about the growth of this upscale category. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, you just gave them table scraps, and then we went to kibbles and bits, and now people are like, well, I want my pet to live longer, so our pets, so suddenly we're buying upscale, good food and other sorts of things for animals. Is that continuing? How big is the market? It's huge, isn't it?
Well, first of all, that's a great show. It's a consumer show. It's out here in Costa Mesa at the fairgrounds, like you were saying. I think it's in April. We exhibit this will be our second year. We're actually showcasing in the lab this year, which are only 4 vendors out of the 700 or 800 that are there. Wow. So we're a primary We'll have a 20 by 10 booth, an Insta photo, spin the wheel, the whole bit. We like the consumers to have a great time with the brand and interface. So I'll tell you the honest truth. There's probably 200 of those shows every year, and a good handful of them that draw a lot of consumer base. And we get to them as many of them as we can. Most of our efforts really spent in adoption and welfare. And so we work with the head spokesperson for the Animal Humane Society, Mary Tan, and she came on about 6 months ago, and she's spearheading what I'm calling open source charity. And every month the team is charged to go out and save an animal, save a rescue. And we go to great extents. I think this year we're budgeted $150,000 for charitable contributions. This is at will every month for the year. And that's a lot to say for a startup.
Yeah.
But we're big believers in it. We're big believers in look at rescue first.
Yeah.
And just a whole variety of things. There's a great couple out of Canada that just quit their jobs, Megan and Florian.
Tell me about this.
Did I tell you about this?
Yeah,
And they're hopping in a van, and they're taking the next 4 months. They're going to hit every shelter and rescue in Canada. And we're as best they can, and we're going to showcase it for them and follow them, and try to get some dogs purpose to home and be a part of that. So that's where we put most of our focus. But the consumer and trade shows are a big part of what we do for showcasing new products.
And how big has this upscale market become here? I was flabbergasted the numbers they were throwing about the pet industry as a whole, but particularly this upscale category.
Well, I'm not going to get
premium or whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
like every industry, it has its challenges, and currently, pets suffering from some backlash from some FDA-related claims specific to certain products. I'm not going to go into detail because Boss Dog doesn't take a position on it. We just feel like we make products. If you're worried, we make products that solve those problems.
Got it.
Okay. And what was your exact question?
I guess just how big
the premium side.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what's driving it. If it wasn't for this latest crisis, I would say year over year, same store numbers would be double digit across the board. However, because of this crisis, I think it's skewed a lot of the overall mix. But what we are seeing that's interesting is that millennial consumption habits are filling the gap. And, that's obviously, I don't know how sustainable that is long term. You got to solve whatever's driving the industry down right now. But that's, I think.
Or you've got someone like my wife who spares no expense. And I think
that's the point. Yeah. I mean, people will spend anything and everything for their pets these days.
Babies and pets. Spare no expense.
Right. I own one of each.
Yep. Lucky you.
Yeah. What are some of your... you kind of hit on them, but what would you highlight as some of your biggest victories? We talked about your challenges.
I think we stay, our team's great at staying the course. And I've seen too many younger entrepreneurs get in and then hit what's commonly referred to as the financial gap or the financial pit. And you have to make a decision. Are you gonna stand behind the brand, or are you going to get out? And I think we're really good at staying the course and running trial to avoid those pitfalls. And at the end of the day, I think it just always comes down to your ability to execute.
Yeah.
And so you can talk a story all day if you can't get the group in alignment and in a capacity to execute, you might as well forget it.
Do you have any particular either authors or podcasts or anything like inspirational stuff that
besides you on the podcast?
Besides me, yeah. Good answer, by the way.
I think you've heard me say in the gym, I like to listen to Mr. Rogan.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, he does.
I like the way he challenges.
I'm a big fan of his as well.
Yeah. Books, I don't know. I'm reading something my wife gave me the other day about Leavenworth Prison System, The Hot House. Which is it's a little bit darker than I typically like. But honestly, it's been the last year has been so fast that I haven't had a lot of leisure time.
Yeah.
But normally, that's what I'll do. I'll listen to some podcasts and read a few books on the planes.
All right, got it. So one of the things that I have the honor of doing and asking my guests is the final thought question. And that final thought question is, what is your ultimate lesson learned? I'm just going to say, as your career as a business owner, you've kind of crossed different fields in the time, but just as a a leader and business owner, business leader?
I think I touched on it briefly. It's the persistence.
Yeah.
It's the wanting to push on, and I think you have to embrace the fear of failure if you're going to go for it. And then I always take a vow of humility before every project, because I've seen more often than not ego get in the way of good business sense.
Yeah.
And so we leave that at the door.
Smart.
And you know, especially in the old group, you get 3 good guys in the room.
Yeah.
You know, and so we just try to focus on what we need to do to move the brand forward.
Yeah. So I have a copy of a book, and he's an old gym friend of mine as well, author and public speaker, and the title of his new book is Fail More. So it's right in line with your thing. Just you gotta take a risk, and failures are going to lead to ultimate success. My most favorite question, though, is what's your guilty pleasure, Basil?
My guilty pleasure. Well, it used to be wine before you put us all on this 60-day no booze thing.
We have 8 days left, Paul. We have 8 days.
You put him on a no booze challenge?
Oh, it was elective. It was elective.
Oh, okay.
It was elective.
All right.
There's 15 of us.
You, the wine connoisseur here?
Yeah, I'm right there with them.
I would say any of Mom's Greek pastries.
Oh, nice.
If we can convince her to come down here from Seattle, that's risogalo, Greek rice pudding.
Okay.
That's where it's at.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
Never heard of that. What's it called?
Risogalo.
Risogalo.
Yeah.
Sort of like that.
So,
okay.
because I'm such a good competitor, I'm going to find some of that and get it shipped to your house so you can have a lot of it before our weigh-in next week, Thursday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Basil, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, these were great responses, and I think the audience is going to get a big kick out of this. So in any event, I want to thank everyone who has tuned in, and we look forward to being in studio next week. Have a good week. Cheers.
Tune in next week for the latest edition of the Zandbergen Report, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Catch up on our recent shows by visiting bartzandbergen.podbean.com. The Zandbergen Report is also available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Interested in being a featured guest on our show, or have a question you'd like to hear us answer? Email podcast@bartzandbergen.com. Bart A. Zandbergen, CFP, and Letitia Burbaum, AIF, are registered investment advisors with Optivest Inc. and registered representatives with Gramercy Securities Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered by Optivest Inc. under SEC registration.